In 2025, the world is shifting. But no one expected this. US President Donald Trump has returned to the global stage with more fury than ever. And this time, he's targeting Europe. Not just with tariffs or tweets, but with real policies, harsh words, and clear-cut enemies. What's happening behind closed doors in Washington isn't diplomacy. It's retaliation. Trump has not only caused harm to these countries with his words, but he has gone too far with his words. A new list is emerging. 9 European countries, nations he once called allies, countries now standing in his crosshairs. Why? Because in his eyes, they've betrayed America. So in today's video, we are going to show you 9 European countries that are now on Trump's blacklist. And if you're from one of them, you need to listen closely. Because what's coming could reshape your borders, economies, and alliances forever. But before starting the video, I want to request you, we put our best efforts to create our every single video. So please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's start. Number 9. Ireland. Trump's fury with Ireland has reached a boiling point in 2025, escalating into a fierce economic showdown centered on taxes, tech, and what he perceives as a profound betrayal. In his second presidential term, Trump has declared war on global tech havens, singling out Ireland, home to the European headquarters of tech titans like Apple, Google, and Meta, as his primary target. He has branded Ireland as Europe's tax cheat, accusing the nation of enabling American corporations to dodge billions in taxes through intricate loopholes and shell subsidiaries. According to a 2025 U.S. Department of Treasury report, a staggering $118 billion in untaxed corporate income was parked in Irish-based accounts, with over 60% tied to just 10 U.S. multinationals, fueling Trump's outrage. He claims this siphons critical revenue from American workers, leaving the U.S. Treasury shortchanged while Ireland reaps windfall profits. Ireland, however, has not taken the accusations lightly. The Irish government has publicly condemned Trump's aggressive trade war tactics, warning that his policies threaten up to 80,000 jobs in Ireland's multinational sector, which employs 11% of the nation's workforce. Trump retaliated swiftly, imposing crippling 20% tariffs on Irish pharmaceutical exports, worth $61.7 billion annually, or 61% of Ireland's goods exports to the U.S., and iconic Irish whiskey, which accounts for $849 million in yearly U.S. sales. These tariffs, effective from April 2025, have sparked fears of a 3.7% contraction in Ireland's economy under a worst-case trade war scenario, according to Ireland's Economic and Social Research Institute. Behind closed doors, Trump's administration is reportedly pressuring U.S. companies to abandon their Irish operations entirely, threatening punitive measures like 200% tariffs on firms that refuse to repatriate jobs and profits. As the trade war looms, Irish communities brace for devastating job losses, with rural areas dependent on pharmaceutical plants facing an uncertain future. The specter of empty factories and shuttered distilleries looms large, as Ireland's economic miracle teeters on the edge of collapse under Trump's unrelenting pressure. Number 8. Spain. Trump's beef with Spain runs deep into 2025, and it's about two things: migration and Morocco. As waves of migrants continue to flood Spain's southern borders from North Africa, with over 45,000 arrivals recorded in 2024 alone, according to Frontex, Trump has blasted Spanish leaders for their weak border policies and their support for EU resettlement programs, which he claims funnel unvetted migrants into Europe. But the real firestorm came when Spain refused to back Trump's controversial stance recognizing Moroccan control over Western Sahara, a move that has inflamed tensions in the region. Trump called Spain's position pathetic and anti-American, accusing them of siding with socialist globalists instead of U.S. interests, further straining transatlantic ties. In retaliation, Trump has blocked Spanish companies from winning U.S. infrastructure bids, costing firms like Ferrovial and ACS an estimated $2.3 billion in potential contracts, per a 2025 U.S. Commerce Department report. He has also cut intelligence sharing on North Africa, leaving Spain vulnerable to emerging threats from jihadist networks, with Spanish officials warning of a 30% rise in crime-related arrests since 2023. Diplomatic personnel have been pulled from Madrid, reducing embassy staff by 40%, according to State Department figures. Trump now refers to Spain as Europe's southern sellout, accusing them of enabling Islamist influence and betraying transatlantic security. Spanish economists fear a 1.8% GDP contraction if U.S. sanctions escalate, per a 2025 BBVA research forecast, with coastal communities bracing for job losses in tourism and trade. The relationship is melting fast, and it's getting colder by the day, as fears of a broader transatlantic rift loom large. Number 7. Germany. This one isn't new, but it's getting worse. Trump's hatred for Germany dates back to his first term. But in 2025, it's gone nuclear. After Germany refused to meet the new U.S. demanded 4% NATO spending target, with its defense budget stalled at 2.1% of GDP according to 2025 NATO figures, Trump lashed out, calling Germany Europe's biggest parasite. What pushed him over the edge was Germany's deepening energy ties with Russia and China. Even after the Ukraine crisis, Germany resumed parts of its energy cooperation with Moscow, importing 15% of its natural gas from Russia in 2024 per Eurostat, and signed new battery tech deals with Chinese firms, which Trump views as treason. He's furious at Berlin for leading the EU's anti-American environmental push, with Germany's 2035 fossil fuel phase-out plan encouraging other nations to abandon U.S. oil and gas imports, costing U.S. producers $12 billion annually, per a 2025 Energy Information Administration report. Trump also accused the German government of trying to undermine U.S. influence in Africa and the Middle East by funding parallel development projects, with $3.2 billion allocated to African infrastructure in 2024, according to Germany's foreign ministry. Now, U.S. troops are being withdrawn from key German bases like Ramstein, reducing the U.S. presence by 25% as per Pentagon data. German companies like Siemens and Volkswagen face sanctions, with $4.8 billion in U.S. contracts frozen, per the U.S. Treasury. Trump is threatening to remove Germany from favored trading partner status, which could slash German exports to the U.S., worth $170 billion in 2025. He's made it clear, Berlin is no longer an ally. It's an adversary. German economists warn of a potential 2.5% GDP contraction if trade barriers escalate, fueling fears of mass layoffs in Germany's industrial heartland. Number 6. Belgium. At the heart of the European Union, Belgium hosts NATO's headquarters in Brussels. But to Trump, Belgium is no longer a neutral middleman. It's a hostile nerve center of anti-American policy. In 2025, Trump accused Belgian officials of sabotaging U.S.-led initiatives at NATO summits, alleging they leaked classified U.S. proposals on missile defense to French and German media, compromising 60% of discussed strategies, per a 2025 Pentagon internal review. He also claims Belgian courts are interfering with U.S. extradition requests, blocking 12 high-profile cases involving cybercriminals and Iranian-linked suspects since 2023, according to U.S. Justice Department records. Perhaps most insulting to Trump was Belgium's move to publicly condemn U.S. arms sales to Israel in 2025. Brussels introduced sanctions on American defense firms like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, citing alleged violations of international law in Gaza, impacting $1.2 billion in contracts, per a 2025 U.S. Commerce Department estimate. Trump responded by freezing defense intelligence sharing with NATO's Brussels base, cutting 80% of real-time data transfers, and began exploring moving U.S. command centers out of Belgium entirely, with Poland and Italy as potential alternatives, according to NATO sources. He now calls Belgium the EU's little snake, and he wants nothing to do with it. Belgian officials fear a 1.9% GDP contraction if U.S. military presence is relocated, per a 2025 Belgian National Bank forecast, threatening 15,000 jobs tied to NATO operations. The specter of a hollowed-out Brussels looms, with local businesses bracing for economic fallout as transatlantic ties fray further. Number 5. Norway. You wouldn't expect Norway on this list. But in 2025, this peaceful Scandinavian country is suddenly in Trump's bad books. Norway's aggressive environmental agenda has directly clashed with Trump's fossil-fueled vision of American energy dominance. In 2025, Norway led the push to ban U.S. oil exports to Europe, calling them climate criminal at an EU energy summit, with 70% of EU member states backing Norway's resolution, per a 2025 European Commission report. They shut down port access to U.S. LNG ships, blocking $2.8 billion in annual U.S. energy exports to Norway, according to U.S. Energy Department data, and urged the EU to replace American energy with Nordic renewables, particularly offshore wind, which Norway projects to supply 15% of Europe's energy by 2030. This sparked Trump's rage. He accused Norway of economic warfare and labeled their policies as green communism in a fiery speech on X.com. Trump has since sanctioned Norwegian energy firms like Equinor, freezing $1.1 billion in U.S.-based assets, per the U.S. Treasury, and cut U.S.-Norway Arctic cooperation, halting joint research projects worth $450 million annually, according to NOAA. He also encouraged American investors to pull out of Oslo entirely, leading to a 12% drop in U.S. investment in Norway's stock market in Q1 2025, per Oslo Børs data. Norwegian economists warn of a 2.3% GDP contraction if U.S. sanctions intensify, per a 2025 Norges Bank forecast, with coastal communities reliant on energy exports facing potential job losses of up to 10,000. The specter of economic isolation looms as Trump's message rings clear. If you attack American oil, you're his enemy. Number 4. Netherlands. The Netherlands may be small, but it's causing big problems for Trump in 2025. At the heart of the issue is tech. Dutch firm ASML controls the world's most advanced chip-making technology, producing 90% of the photolithography machines critical for cutting-edge semiconductors, per a 2025 Semiconductor Industry Association report. When Trump pushed allies to ban semiconductor exports to China, the Netherlands resisted hard, citing a €30 billion trade surplus with China in 2024, according to Statistics Netherlands. Trump saw this as betrayal. The Dutch government argued that the tech bans would destroy their economy, with ASML alone projecting a €12 billion revenue loss, and provoke Chinese retaliation, potentially disrupting 15% of Dutch exports, per a 2025 Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs forecast. Trump didn't care. He demanded full compliance, and when he didn't get it, he exploded. He revoked trade protections for Dutch exports, impacting $18 billion in annual U.S.-bound goods like chemicals and machinery, per U.S. Commerce Department data. He blocked visa access for Dutch officials, stranding 200 diplomats and trade negotiators in 2025, according to the Dutch Foreign Ministry. Trump also threatened to nationalize U.S.-based Dutch assets, including $3.2 billion in Shell and Phillips holdings, per U.S. Treasury estimates. He now calls the Netherlands Europe's tech traitor. Dutch economists warn of a 2.1% GDP contraction if U.S. sanctions escalate, threatening 25,000 jobs in tech and trade sectors, per a 2025 Rabobank analysis. The damage is far from over, with fears of a broader tech trade war rattling Dutch communities and global supply chains. Number 3. Italy. Italy's newly elected leftist coalition government in 2025 is a direct ideological enemy of Trump's America First doctrine. From day one, Italian leaders slammed Trump's return to power, calling him a threat to democracy in a widely publicized speech at the European Parliament, drawing condemnation from 62% of U.S. voters surveyed by Pew Research in 2025. Trump didn't forget that. Italy has refused to host U.S. nuclear drills, blocked American military flights through its airspace, grounding 120 U.S. aircraft in Q1 2025 per Pentagon logs, and voted against the U.S. in 3 separate UN resolutions on trade, climate, and Middle East policy in the first half of 2025, per UN records. Trump retaliated fast, cutting $200 million in foreign aid to Italy, freezing $1.5 billion in arms sales, including F-35 components, per the U.S. State Department, and publicly insulting Italian leaders during G7 forums, calling them weak socialists. But what really broke the relationship was Italy's deal with China's Belt and Road Initiative, reviving $10 billion in infrastructure investments for Italian ports and railways in 2025, according to Italy's Ministry of Infrastructure, which Trump had tried to kill. He now labels Italy a Chinese puppet in a European disguise. Italian economists warn of a 1.7% GDP contraction if U.S. sanctions escalate, per a 2025 Bank of Italy forecast, threatening 30,000 jobs in manufacturing and tourism. Fears of economic isolation and severed NATO ties grip Italy, as Trump pushes American allies to treat Italy like a traitor. Number 2. France. When it comes to enemies in Europe, Trump has always kept a special place for France. But in 2025, the hostility has turned into outright warfare, diplomatic and economic. French leader Elizabeth Borne has led the EU charge against Trump's foreign policy, publicly humiliating the US over its Israel stance, climate withdrawal, and NATO budget cuts during a 2025 EU summit, with 68% of EU leaders backing France's position, per a European Council poll. France has also banned US beef imports over hormone concerns, costing American ranchers $1.2 billion annually, per USDA data, and blocked $3.8 billion in US arms deals, including missile systems, in favor of European alternatives, according to France's Ministry of Defense. Trump retaliated with 25% tariffs on French wine, luxury goods, and tech services, impacting $14 billion in French exports to the US, per France's Ministry of Economy. He pulled out of multiple joint intelligence operations, reducing counterterrorism data sharing by 70%, per a 2025 CIA report, and stripped France of favored visa status, affecting 45,000 French business travelers annually, according to U.S. State Department figures. He is called France arrogant, broken, and irrelevant on X.com, amplifying anti-French sentiment among his base. Behind the scenes, Trump is reportedly funneling $10 million to French opposition groups, per leaked U.S. diplomatic cables, hoping to crush Borne's government by the 2027 election. French economists warn of a 2.4% GDP contraction if trade disputes escalate, per a 2025 Banque de France forecast. With 50,000 jobs at risk in wine and luxury sectors, the specter of a transatlantic rupture looms, as France braces for further economic pain. France is now enemy number 2, but there's still one more. Number 1. United Kingdom. This may shock you. The country Trump once called America's greatest ally is now at the top of his hate list. In 2025, the UK elected a centrist coalition that immediately distanced itself from Trump's foreign policy, with 58% of Britons supporting the shift per a YouGov poll. Britain rejoined EU regulatory frameworks, undermining UDOT's UK trade negotiations valued at $280 billion annually, per UK's Department for Business and Trade, and cancelled joint naval drills in the Indo-Pacific, halting operations involving 12 U.S. warships, according to the U.S. Navy. But worst of all, London approved £15 billion in Chinese investment in key UK tech and rail infrastructure, including 5G networks and high-speed rail, directly ignoring U.S. warnings, per a 2025 UK Treasury report. Trump exploded. He cancelled the long-awaited U.S. UK trade pact, costing the UK an estimated $30 billion in potential exports, per the Institute for Fiscal Studies. He pulled 60% of diplomatic staff from London, leaving only 200 personnel, per the U.S. State Department, and began encouraging American banks like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs to leave the British market, with $1.2 trillion in assets at risk, according to the Bank of England. Trump now refers to Britain as the new France, a backstabber and a disgrace, on X.com, fueling a 15% drop in UK tourism from the US in Q1 2025, per Visit Britain data. UK economists warn of a 2.8% GDP contraction if US sanctions escalate, threatening 75,000 jobs in finance and trade, per a 2025 LSE forecast. He feels betrayed, and when Trump feels betrayed, he strikes back. The UK may soon face full economic warfare from the very man who once promised a special relationship, as fears of a transatlantic divorce grip British markets and communities. Trump's war with Europe is not about differences. It's about revenge, betrayal, and control. These 9 countries thought they could defy Trump without consequences. But in 2025, the consequences are here. Sharp, brutal, unforgiving. And if Trump continues on this path, this list might grow longer. And the next Cold War won't be East versus West. It'll be America versus Europe. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.